Tennessee Education Report, tnedreport.com. T as in Tom, N as in Nancy, D as in dog, report.com. This was, thought this may be a sensitive topic, and as I value privacy, wanted to bring this conversation up to stimulate conversation in hopes of professional solutions, if any at all, as I step outside my comfort zone to create content that is designed to both educate and engage, not only the viewer or spectator, but myself. So let's go ahead and jump into it, and we'll see why this is such an interesting topic. Now, first and foremost, this particular article is dealing with the state of Tennessee. I'm assuming based upon the Tennessee Education Report. Welcome to the Charter Party. So we're going to go ahead and go through this. On Friday afternoon before Mother's Day weekend, and just after Tennessee General Assembly had adjourned, the Tennessee Department of Education announced 15 grants for charter school applicants, including grants for charter applications in several districts that do not currently authorize any charter schools: Rutherford County, Montgomery County, Millington Municipal, Fayette County, and Williamson County. The grants would allow applicants to plan and design their applications, and the applicants would ultimately bypass local school districts and receive charter authorization from Governor Lee's Super Charter Commission. So before I go on, we got to definitely look into the Super Charter Commission. And again, this is not to yay or nay, it's just to become educated and informed, to be able to have an educated conversation. So we got to look into the Super Charter Commission. It's the first time I've ever heard of it. And again, I was just going through my day-to-day. I'm stepping outside my comfort zone. But in the line of work that I do, especially dealing with education, employment, housing, things of that nature, for workforce development, dealing with grassroots marketing and community relations, that spilled into government relations in a number of different ways. This was a conversation that I feel that some need to just creatively stimulate and think about. So first thing that comes to my mind is, okay, Super Charter Commission, what is it? That's definitely another video. I do want to shout out Governor Bill Lee. Everyone, there's two things you don't talk about, I say humbly, and that's religion and politics, from what I understand. And in this case, as I'm an advocate of human beings, I do want to just, I'm always speaking life, and I'm hoping in grace to be someone that's always uplifting and encouraging, as no one supposedly is perfect. I do just want to shout out the governor, and there's going to be a number of governors to come, just like there was a number of governors that have been, So in this case, in this timeline, Governor Bill Lee is, on the scene. I want to shout him out, his family, and just speak life and protection and grace over him, his family. Just all that goes with that. Naturally, you get into the division of parties, political parties. And if you follow my videos and you follow me on One Street Over, which is an online radio show with the U-Turn Laverne, you'd always know I'm advocating myself this very important value. I'm going to pull it up right now. I'm always advocating this value on the show, and I'm going to advocate it now. President George Washington warned that political parties would lead to divisions and fighting amongst the people. This, he feared, would lead to foreign influence in the government and other forms of corruption. Despite Washington's warnings, the first two political parties in the U.S. rose from his own cabinet, and since then, parties have become prominent forces in American politics, against political parties as they cause division amongst the people of the country to foreign influence. The first two political parties were the Federalist Party and the Democratic Republican Party, which were started by President Washington's cabinet members, Thomas Jefferson, Secretary of State, and Alexander Hamilton, Secretary of Treasury. I do want to shout out the play Hamilton. I advocate everyone to watch it. I definitely get a lot of feedback in regards to, okay, well, what's the authenticity and the truth of the of the play. I just feel personally, always do your research. Never take anything at face value. So even the play Hamilton, but at the same time, I'm encouraged to see civic engagement, especially for young folks to be able to gravitate to and learn and just want to get more information about. So I thought that was a very creative way to talk about civics. So I just want to shout that out. So my point is, even in this case, George Washington, which was Through the documentation, the first president of the U.S., United States of America, actually advocated against political parties. And the reason they started was because he wanted to have a diverse group of minds around him. And because he trusted these advisors, they kind of indirectly saw different perspectives, and therefore they kind of formed groups against each other in the cabinet. And next thing you know, you had groups, within the cabinet, doing their best to influence and advise the president. So he advocated against it. But with that being said, people might see me shouting out Governor Bill Lee as, but I'm humbly thinking and looking above that and just thinking of us just trying to do two things in biology, which is survive and reproduce. And I hope we have enough, at least love in our hearts to be able to at least speak life into each other. And in this case, with grace, that's what I'm doing. And going back into, the article, in regards to these grants that several districts that do not currently authorize any charter schools, have. I definitely would love to interview someone from the state education department. We're not yay or nay. We just want to engage. Engagement is so important. Education is so important. Getting information is so important. So we can all move transparently and integrally. Maybe you want to get their perspective of, what that looked like. Maybe a state legislator, what that looked like. But what, to some, especially those that may really be passionate about it, they may look at that as, leveraging or, what was that about? So these are just things I'm speaking out loud, especially being an advisor to the private sector. The grants could also result in usurping, the results in usurping, that's probably not how you pronounce it, but usurping the authority of elected school boards in Shelby, Hamilton, and Davidson County. The grants can also result in usurping. It's always important to know what you're doing. Usurp, take a position of power of importance illegally or by force. Yikes. Take the place of someone in a position of. Take illegally by force. The grants could also result in taking illegally or by force the authority of elected school boards in Shelby, Hamilton, and Davidson County. And I know that's Shelby and Davidson, which includes Nashville and Memphis, which are two obviously large municipalities in the state. And I've got to look up Hamilton County. And excuse me for not knowing that, state of Tennessee, as I know you love your state. I got to be on it. Forgive me. I'm not even going to, but these are the different. So that just kind of throws out, could also, by force, the authority of, what does that look like? What's this about? What is the cause? What's the root? What's the catalyst? When you think of these things, these are the things that are bubbling in people's minds, especially, and that's why emotional intelligence, easier said than done, is so important. And I should have a link somewhere at the bottom where you can take the emotional intelligence course. I had a chance to serve as a guest speaker for a Black CEO conference, is what it was called. And my theme was, I believe, how to conquer the corporate world using emotional intelligence. And I tell my story of, coming to a new state, unhoused, as they say, with a girlfriend who was pregnant that I didn't know, and end up, with grace, building such a story. So, any rate, gotta look into that. Today, the Tennessee Department of Education announced that 15 applicants have been awarded subgrants under the Charter School Expansion Grant. These funds are intended to support sponsors throughout the planning, design, application, and potential launch of new charter schools in the state. Now, it's another conversation, charter schools compared to public schools. And everyone has their thoughts on public schools. Obviously, everyone has their thoughts on charter schools. With that being said, just to shake things up, I do want to shout out my man Shaka Mitchell, for my overstanding Tennessee State Director for the Tennessee Federation for Children. I believe he's advocating charter schools. And if not, but we definitely want to see if we can get a conversation with him. What can we learn about education during this pandemic? Sharp young man and sharp professional. And the reason why I wanted to shout him out is because he's in the thick of things in regards to charter schools in Tennessee. But I have a chance to personally know this gentleman, and just as a human being, I respect, especially being a young professional, his drive, his youth, his predictability, sustainability, um, commitment to the art of professionalism. As this is professionalism is a mature, masterful game, and he's a young professional, family man, and just a person that cares. I mean, regardless of whatever the viewpoint, he cares about what's going on in the world. So for that, it doesn't. A young man, he could be doing so many other things, and here he is, being productive in a great, democracy, if you will, as far as a system to be able to advocate and to have freedom of speech, if you will. So I do want to shout him out. Information there. I want to say that the Tennessee Federation for Children may have, as advocates of charter schools, may have, some say or input, into this conversation. Maybe we can get Mr. Shaka Mitchell for an interview as well. But there's 15 grants going on with the potential launch of a new charter schools in the state. So we definitely want to look at that. Look at where public school system is in the state of Tennessee, where they are. This is what I would do. If I'm reading this article, where the public school system in the state of Tennessee, what's going on, what's the latest, what's their thoughts. So we definitely want to interview a school board member, if we could, from Hamilton, Davidson, and Shelby County. These are things that I would focus on if I were, providing my grassroots marketing, advising, and consulting, and community relations advising, to my clients, which are traditionally employers, local businesses, as well as urban core developers or real estate developers. So these subgrants will fund up to 8,800 new high-quality charter school seats that, subject to authorizer approval, will be available to students in 5 districts that currently do not have charter schools and in 3 districts that already authorize charter schools. Interesting. Gotta have some interviews. Excuse me. Gotta have some interviews. Subgrants totaling $6.3 million were awarded primarily from the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund, also known as GEAR, which is a second GEAR grant designed specifically to support charter schools, with additional funds from the Charter School Program Grant. So we definitely want to, ideally, we can get an interview with the governor's decision maker of some sort under GEAR, just to get perspectives. How we can't jump to conclusions, and we also want to be able to make the wisest decision while using the least amount of words as possible, which means you have to first collect information, find out what's what, and that's how you become known as an expert in your field, because you want to be able to get the most done with using the less information, energy, and or content. So with that being said, and the key line about subverting the will of voters in these districts. Let's start this from the top. Subgrants totaling $6.3 million were awarded primarily from the Governor's Emergency Relief Education Fund, GEAR, which is the second GEAR grant designed specifically to support charter schools, with additional funds from the Charter School Program Grant. And the key line about subverting the will of voters in these districts. The review process for charter school applicants for the 2022-23 school year is ongoing, and the subgrant awards are contingent upon approval of the proposed charter school by the applicant's respective school districts, or, if an appeal occurs, the Tennessee Public Charter School Commission. Definitely want to throw, and these are just, this is just fun facts. They're throwing out some keywords, some key brands. The Tennessee Public Charter School, definitely want to look into them. It's my first, the Tennessee Public Charter School Commission. Definitely new to that brand. Want to look into that for sure. Upon approval. That's right. School privatization is coming to Tennessee in suburban and rural districts, whether voters want it or not. That is a powerful statement, and I'm going to highlight that. Just as someone that's just a traditional constituent and citizen, but at the same time, someone that's skilled in the art of communications, business development as well. That's right. School privatization is coming to Tennessee in suburban and rural districts, whether you voters want it or not. What's your thoughts on that? I'm going to stop it right there. Leave your comments. Leave your thoughts. You know, what are some of the next steps? What comes to your mind? We say these things humbly. This is how you get in front of things to be able to help find a win-win deal. As we, we hope that that's the case. As we hope all things work for good, whether you like it or not. While Lee's voucher scheme is bogged down in court, Lee is acting unilaterally to characterize Tennessee's public schools. Very strong statement. This is opinion or facts, for sure. This is opinion or facts. I will come to mind. Either or is fine, but I just, these are things because when you're looking from the outside in, third party, that's a strong sentence, and I say that humbly and professionally. While Lee's voucher scheme is bogged down in court, Lee is acting unilaterally to characterize Tennessee's public schools. This is exactly what Memphis State Rep Antonio Parkinson said would happen back in 2019. And I've had a chance to connect with State Representative Antonio Parkinson, I believe. Sharp gentleman. Again, I'm looking at the internal and the human individual. Whatever we stand for in our brands or in our perspectives, that's our right, if you will, and belief system to the point where we are able to have that in this geographical territory of the earth, which is a great thing. And so again, I'm always looking at solutions. I'm never, got to be patient. We got to have emotional intelligence. I'm going to bring that right back in order to get, things done. But more so, I had a state to meet the Honorable State Representative Antonio Parkinson a few times. He probably doesn't remember me from Adam. I know he's a busy man, but Sharp, again, it's about engagement and it's about, following yourself. But again, in this particular, the public sector also being a voice for your district. So it's very tricky. And for these reasons, anyone that's in these positions on either side, independent, whatever, I always like to make sure I just stand in agreement with them, of their grace as they go through, this civics process, which is so unique when you become elected, that a lot of times it's larger than the imagination. And but again, if all things work for good, we put our work behind our faith to get things done. And so it looks like State Representative Antonio Parkinson, RT, at Zig in debate at Governor Billy's legislation. Tennessee Representative Parkinson warned rural colleagues they will soon get a taste of the charter medicine across the state. TN Ledge. So that's a powerful statement as well. So it looks like the representative warned colleagues that they would soon get a taste of the charter medicine across the state. We don't know what the medicine looks like. I never experienced medicine, but at the same time, we know these are individuals that are highly involved, highly just very ingrained, and so it looks like according to statements exactly what Memphis, Tennessee Representative Antonio Parkinson said would happen in 2019. So of course, this should come as no surprise to anyone paying attention to Lee and his affinity for privatization. And to be honest with you, I'm just going to be honest with you. Privatization, and this has nothing to do with the state of Tennessee, this is overall. Privatization really is the name of the game. I'm not advocating or saying this, that, or the third, but really, when you're able to privatize something, it opens up the bounds, if one will, compared to the public sector, which includes tax dollars, and you want to humbly follow those guidelines under tax dollars. But one thing about privatization, it opens things up. There are obviously some pros and cons to it. But at the same time, I think we all, as individuals, including myself, and I'm just saying it's a stimulation conversation, become more aware of privatization conversations, because there was a point where things was privatized and became more public, but I believe there's a push, especially in the state of Tennessee, for privatization. Now, hopefully there's an integral privatization and not a monopoly. That's the whole point about it, though. And that's where you start getting individuals that really don't believe in the system when there's monopolies. You want to make sure that the game of privatization is open, and that's one of the challenges I feel of capitalism, because sometimes you want to dominate and maintain your position, that sometimes you have no choice but to make decisions that really are integral to the overall game of capitalism. But that's the point of capitalism, because technically, if you can get away with it, you're going to try to push it, even though we're supposed to be walking in integrity, and that's a spiritual conversation. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. But to accept the fact that, privatization does exist, and in 2021 moving forward, 2022 moving forward, privatization, increasing. This is something that we have to be prepared for. If you advocate against it, you got to be involved civically, maybe again, even to the point of becoming an elected official and/or just an advocate, a community organizer, if one will, in the regard of building up the community. But privatization is something that is becoming more increasing from my experience. Rural charter schools coming soon. I don't know if this is relevant. I'm assuming it's not. I might jump back to it. No word yet from Republican lawmakers in Fayette, Montgomery, Rutherford, or Williamson counties on how they feel about pushing about pushing charters in their areas without seeking legislative approval. And that's a great point. There you go. So that's a great point. Let's look at what does, and I'm sure it'll come out if what does Fayette, Montgomery, Rutherford, and Williamson County, how do they feel about pushing charter schools in their areas without acting legislative approval? Obviously, these legislators have to get the word and the thoughts of their constituents, because they're just the voice of their constituents. So they may be for it, they may be against it, but I believe it's going to take time for them to engage their constituents, have a dialogue about it, get on one page, to be able to go back, to legislation to speak their piece. And with that being said, it'd be nice if, even as we're again stepping outside our comfort zone, taking our skill sets and going through articles that we would use for our personal business as far as our skill sets, having interviews with Fayette, Montgomery, Rutherford, and Williamson County legislators, about how they feel about, the governor pushing charter schools in their area. Now, is it the governor, or is it another situation? Is it the Department of Education overall, in the federal level? Is it a state thing? Or is it a conglomerate of municipalities and counties? Who knows? But these are the things that come to mind that we have to think about. For more on education, politics, and policy in Tennessee, follow at TNED report. Now, I will say, disclaimer, obviously, that you might say, well, this is the TN Ed report, education report, and they feel this way or they're financed that way. I'm just, again, I'm just stepping out my comfort zone, because I get a lot of information in my line of work that comes to me. I keep things quiet because I feel like I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to create no waves. So I do what needs to be done. Do what needs to be done. But in this case, I want to help educate and advocate and engage more, not only for myself but others. And these are the type of things that I come across that go through my mind, and things that if I were in a community relations or a grassroots marketing contract with any of these individuals, this is how I'm like, okay, well, how do we increase the customer base? How do we increase the community presence? How do we increase the buy-in? Is there a way to increase the buy-in? Because the thing is, you don't want to get in front of something that doesn't sell itself, because the people will not get fooled, first and foremost. So you want to be able to be authentic and have a product or brand that sells itself. And so these are things that go through my mind when I think about. And so leave your thoughts and comments about the Tennessee Education Report. Welcome to the Charter Party. I will have, and I will do my best to have diverse content from diverse platforms, but I'm just going, my whole thing is, as I'm going through life, minding my own business, and I'm going through, my day, and situations like this pop up, instead of me going through doing what I have to do and doing my conversations privately, I want to stop. Let's educate as an advisor, as a teacher myself. Let's go through this article. Let's stimulate the mind. Let's try to ask some questions. What did we write down? Click the link. I'm going to see if I can, at the bottom, just write down all the keywords that we discussed, so that you can do your own research, and maybe we can create videos about them specifically to tie into this conversation, so we can come up with a larger understanding of how to make an educated decision on the information that we're receiving. If you felt this message was worth anything to you, as far as you building up, I thank you for building yourself up. I thank you for your financial monetary donation for what you felt this message was worth to you by clicking that Cash App link. If you advocate that there should be another type of platform for you to donate, please let me know, because I'm stepping outside my comfort zone even doing that. But at the same time, this does take time, and I put my work in as far as advising and consulting in business development and community relations, in education, housing, labor and workforce development at the minimum, and moving into international development and how that ties into government relations. Just want to make sure I step outside my comfort zone, make sure we have this conversation. Let's leave some comments. Let's stay professional. Let's stay positive. We thank everyone and uplift everyone as we're all trying to survive out here. May our reproduction be plentiful and beautiful and bountiful. And I congratulate you in advance for your success. And if the will shall be, I will see you at the top.